In today's video, I have a critical update on a major legal battle in Oregon, one that challenges a sweeping statewide ban on magazines holding more than 10 rounds, along with a controversial permit requirement for purchasing firearms. This case has just taken a significant turn. The Oregon State Supreme Court has officially agreed to hear the case, marking a major development in the fight over Measure 114. Let's walk through what just happened and why this matters so much. Measure 114 is a highly debated piece of legislation in Oregon. It introduced two major restrictions. First, a mandatory permit system for anyone looking to buy a firearm, and second, a ban on the sale, purchase, transfer, and even possession of magazines capable of holding more than 10 rounds. This law was immediately met with strong opposition. In response, a lawsuit was filed, Arnold v. Kotek, challenging the measure under the Oregon State Constitution. The plaintiffs argued that both the permit requirement and the magazine ban violated the constitutional rights of Oregonians. The case was initially heard in a state trial court where Judge Robert Rascio reviewed the arguments and evidence presented. In a major win for gun rights advocates, Judge Rascio ruled that Measure 114 was unconstitutional in its entirety. He issued a permanent injunction blocking the state from enforcing any part of the measure. However, the state of Oregon did not accept that decision. They appealed the ruling to the Oregon Court of Appeals, asking them to overturn the permanent injunction and uphold Measure 114. Recently, the Court of Appeals issued a decision siding with the state. The court ruled that the magazine ban and permit requirement were both facially constitutional, arguing that the law could be applied in ways that don't violate the state constitution. But the fight is far from over. The case has now reached a new level of urgency. The Oregon Supreme Court has officially granted review, meaning they will take up the case and make the final decision on whether Measure 114 stands or falls under Oregon's constitutional protections. When the Oregon Court of Appeals reviewed the magazine restrictions under Measure 114, they stated that the ban represents a modern legislative response to growing public safety concerns. Specifically, they pointed to technological advancements in firearms and the widespread accessibility of high-capacity magazines, which they argue pose a clear and observable threat to public safety. Based on this reasoning, the Court of Appeals upheld Measure 114, directly overturning the decision made by Judge Rascio, who had previously ruled that the law was unconstitutional. However, that ruling is now under review by the Oregon State Supreme Court. The state's highest court has officially accepted the case and will now consider whether Measure 114 violates the Oregon State Constitution. According to a recent order from the Oregon Supreme Court, the petition for review filed by the plaintiffs has been granted. The order outlines a timeline for both sides to submit their legal arguments. The petitioners, those challenging the law, have 28 days from the date of the order to file their brief. Following that, the state of Oregon will have 28 days to submit its response. The court also noted that if either party needs more time to file, they may request a short extension of up to 14 days, provided they can show good cause. In addition to reviewing written arguments, the Oregon Supreme Court has scheduled oral arguments for this case. Those arguments are set to take place on November 6, 2025, at 9:00 a.m. at the Supreme Court in Oregon. This case is listed as the second matter to be heard on that morning's docket. The fact that the Oregon Supreme Court has agreed to review this case and has scheduled oral arguments is a major development. It signals that the court is taking the constitutional questions raised by Measure 114 seriously. The justices will now consider whether the state has the authority to enforce magazine bans and mandatory permit requirements under the Oregon Constitution. This is a pivotal moment not only for gun rights in Oregon, but potentially for similar legal challenges across the country. Now, it's worth pointing out that the Oregon Supreme Court generally leans left. Still, this case represents a significant and unique challenge, combining both a state-level magazine ban and a permit-to-purchase requirement into one major legal battle. It has the potential to set precedent not just in Oregon but across the country. If this case continues to progress, it could eventually make its way to the United States Supreme Court. The ideal outcome for opponents of Measure 114 would be for the Oregon Supreme Court to agree with Judge Rascio's original decision and strike down the law as unconstitutional under the state's constitution. If that happens, the state of Oregon would likely appeal the ruling to the U.S. Supreme Court, asking it to overturn the decision. Of course, that outcome may be difficult to achieve, considering the political makeup of the Oregon Supreme Court. Still, if it does happen, it would create a powerful legal scenario that places direct pressure on both the state of Oregon and the U.S. Supreme Court to finally take a clear stance on laws involving magazine bans and permit requirements. Regardless of the final outcome, the fact that the Oregon Supreme Court has agreed to review this case is a meaningful development. It shows that the issue is being taken seriously at the highest levels of the state's judiciary, and it represents another major challenge pushing forward against these types of restrictions. This case could impact not only Oregon residents but also gun owners in other states who are facing similar laws. It's a key moment in the broader national debate over the Second Amendment and state-level firearm regulations. So that's the current status of Oregon's magazine ban and permit-to-purchase law under Measure 114. As new updates come in, I'll keep you informed right here. Thanks for watching. If you found this update helpful, be sure to like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future coverage on this important case.